Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first of a series of videos, I hope. The first, at least in 2020, that will cover all things state ed, legislative, the governor's proposals or reports, the comptroller's reports, or just basically anything that we think that you might find interesting or that we think you probably should have some information on. Today, I'd like to focus on the governor's proposed budget as well as state ed's graduation measures initiative. So let's just hop right into the governor's proposed budget. As you will see on this first slide, the governor proposes to increase overall state aid by $826 million, which is a little less than 3%. That's all fine and good. That is at least an increase, a good starting point. Further on, you're going to see, and I'll go through all of the pots of money that you see on this slide, but then I really want to unpack foundation aid. So you'll see that there is an increase in foundation aid. Please keep in mind, at least just for the minute, that $50 million of that is a set aside for community schools funding. And we will discuss that in a little bit. You see a $200 million increase in what is labeled, at least in the reports that you will see, targeted high need district foundation aid. That typically has been called a stabilization fund, and it is not really a direct money to specific school districts that you can count on, but it is really a pot of money that is left to equalize school districts who might have gone down one way, different from, let's say, a targeted grant or a targeted pot of money. Then of course, you see expense-based aids. We're going to spend some time on that. An increase of $15 million for pre-K. That's the same as last year. Empire after-school programs, master teachers programs. You see the list, and that is what equals the $826 million increase. I'd like to spend some time on the foundation aid because that's where we are having our most objectionable qualities of this governor's proposed budget. So as I said a little bit earlier, of the $504 million allocated for foundation aid, 50 million of that is for community schools, and it's always been targeted for distinct eligible districts. Up until this year, it's been about 200 districts, and they have to use that money very specifically and on mental health or community school partnerships. An excellent program. This is just exactly the kind of funding that we'd be looking for, except that we don't want it extracted as a set aside out of the foundation aid pot of money. You know, at that point, it isn't really a foundation aid. And in fact, this year, and you will see by our next slide, that there is an increase of 200 more districts eligible for this funding, so that is up to 420. And you'll see on this slide something very different, that the greatest increase is in the number of average need districts who are now eligible. So it's an increased limitation on school districts who previously used foundation aid formula as discretionary funding on their high priorities. But now, the money that's allocated through community schools as part of foundation aid has to be used on community school funding. So that is a major change, and of course, we are going to be providing testimony on February 11th, and we will be bringing this up as one of the things that Sainies would like to see changed. One of the other pieces of this, and probably the last piece that I'll talk about for today, you will be seeing more information on our analysis of the governor's budget through email blast later this afternoon, as well as news and notes which will come out in just a couple of weeks. So with that in mind, let's talk about expense-based aids. The governor's proposal this year would collapse 10 aids, and you see this on the slide, the next slide. 10 of those would be rolled into foundation aid. Again, poor foundation aid seems to be getting battered around quite a bit this year in the proposed budget. And what that does is, although some are increased, some are decreased, what it does is create more uncertainty for districts because it's rolled into foundation aid or proposed to be included in foundation aid. But you won't know what your allocation is or even your projected allocation because they are not on the state runs that you see. We also, if this is a trend for future budgets, we really don't know that interaction. So even though there may be increases in expense-based aids funding, that amount that's allocated or projected for future years may not indeed match what you need for increases overruns. So we are very concerned about how the expense-based aids are being rolled into a foundation aid. So we will, as I said, be testifying on your behalf on February 11th, and we will see, because as you know now, this gets to be just part of the negotiating process that will take us probably through May 1, maybe earlier, but certainly with our on-time budgets, at least until May 1. The second piece that I just would like to talk to you very quickly is about State Ed's Graduation Measures Initiative. We're in the first phase now, and I have attended one this week and will be attending others as we go through the season. But you're going to see on the next slide a link to all of the meetings that are at least on State Ed's website now. I couldn't encourage you to a greater extent to attend at least one of these if you can. The voice of building level administrators is going to be critical here. As you know, this initiative is supposed to roll out with expansive statewide meetings, at which time there will be a blue ribbon panel on graduation measures that the regions will appoint. And then they've really extended the timeline for over 2 years before recommendations really come to State Ed. The approach that are being taken at these statewide meetings is to be some introductory remarks, some slides to give the audience some general information about current requirements, and then a discussion period based around 5 key questions that will be done consistently across the state. And they all have to do with what do, in fact, students need to graduate from high school and be ready for careers for the current context of what these students will be moving into, as well as questions about the Regents examinations. Could there be alternatives? And generally, what is needed to really be that exit kind of criteria for high school. The meeting that I was at and attended was extremely interesting. The conversation certainly was a lot broader at our tables than what the questions would have us focus on. It was stimulating, it will be worth your time, and I really do believe that a building level administrator's perspective is needed at these meetings, so I encourage your attendance. So thank you for your attention to this video. I hope that it has been informative, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, an email. All of my contact information is certainly on our website. So thank you and have a great Monday.